everybody, my name is Michelle and welcome to my very late May reading wrap up. If you have been following me on my vlogs or on social media, you probably know that I'm very busy with finishing up my master's thesis. I finished the first draft, I'm now working on revisions, so that is why I've been very busy and not always very present with new YouTube videos. And that is also why this wrap up is quite late. But I thought better late than never because I did have a very good reading month. I actually finished a book series for the first time in this entire year, so that is amazing. And I think I'm just going to start with this wrap up and tell you all about the books that I have read in May. So first of all, I finished my reread of the Shadow and Bone series by Leigh Bardugo by finishing the last book, Ruin and Rising. This is a young adult series and it takes place in the Grisha-verse, where some people have special powers and they are called Grisha. At the beginning of the book series, there is this mysterious fold in the middle of the country of Revka where it's very dangerous and it's very hard to pass. But then there is this young girl named Alina Starkov who turns out to have the power of a sun summoner. She can summon light, which is very rare and is the one power that may destroy the fold and may end the war. But yeah, as I said, this is the final and third book in the series, so at this point much has happened, but of course I'm not going to spoil anything. I've been rereading this series because of the Netflix adaptation, which was a lot of fun to watch. And I don't think I have a whole lot of new thoughts on this book series and on this final book in general. I think the final book is very interesting and there's a lot that is happening. At this point you definitely know a lot more about the characters and it's just, you are very invested in the story. But I find it so hard to rate this book series on the individual books because when I first read them 5 years ago, I read it like in one go, and now again I read it in one go. So for me it's just one big book, and this one big book I enjoy very much. So Ruin and Rising, I think it is a very satisfying end to the book series. You have your character moments, you have your action, everything that you want is there. There are some aspects of the ending that I would have liked to see differently. Yeah. Of course, again, I cannot really tell. But I think overall it's a very solid series. I will say though, it is very basic YA. It's like everything that you'd expect from a YA trilogy, but it's definitely not bad at all, very enjoyable, and I can highly recommend it if you ever want to read it. After that, I continued with my Grisha-verse reread and I reread the Six of Crows duology with Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I listened to both of these on audiobook. This duology also takes place in the same Grisha-verse, and this one takes place in the city of Ketterdam, which is very much inspired by Amsterdam, which is fun because I am Dutch. And the first book, Six of Crows, is a heist novel. It's about a heist. It's about this, yeah, sort of criminal club and 6 people who come together to pull off a very elaborate, very difficult heist. Then there is much more and it's all connected to the Grisha-verse. I know people ask, you can read the Six of Crows duology without reading the Shadow and Bone series, but especially Crooked Kingdom will spoil some of the ending of Shadow and Bone, and there will be some references and character moments that you won't understand if you have not read Shadow and Bone. So you can very much do it, but I feel like you would enjoy it or at least get a little bit more out of it if you have read Shadow and Bone as well. At least that is my opinion. So for this book series, it is very fun. Of course, it is extremely popular and that's definitely for a reason. The characters are all so interesting, so fleshed out. I think that's definitely the best part of this entire duology are the characters. The adventure is fun, there's action, there are emotional moments, it has everything basically. For me, Six of Crows is 4 out of 5 stars because even though I enjoy it, it doesn't have that same, or like it doesn't have that special quality that some 5-star books have for me. I don't have a specific reason for it, it's just that it's a very good book, it's just not the best book ever in my opinion, but still very good. And then Crooked Kingdom I prefer because I feel like there's so much happening in that one and it's all wrapped up so nicely and a lot of the plot points are so satisfying and it's just oh. And Crooked Kingdom is more of a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. So overall, this duology is exciting, adventurous, fun. Again, if you have not read it, for me it is definitely worth the hype. There is a lot in it that is worth reading. And overall, I am very happy with my Grisha-verse reread, and now I finally have to read the next duology, which is the King of Scars duology. Have not started yet, but now I'm completely up to date again with my rereads, and yeah, a lot of fun. The next book that I finished in May is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. This is historical fiction and it tells the story of a set of identical twin girls named Desiree and Stella. They are light-skinned black girls and they live in a very small town in the 1950s. When they are 16 years old, they decide to go out in the world together and find a life of their own. But then years later, Stella has been passing as white and she has sort of passed over as a white woman, whilst Desiree comes back to the small village with her very dark-skinned daughter. And after that, there's much more that happens. It takes place from like the 1950s, 1960s until the 1990s. It has different points of view, there are different characters, there are multiple generations. Overall, this is very much a character-driven and a character-based story. So I had been hearing so many good stories about The Vanishing Half, and I can tell you that for me, these stories came true because I absolutely adored this book. I loved the writing, I loved the characters, I loved everything that was going on. Again, it is very character based. There is not a whole lot that happens in terms of plot or action, so don't pick up this book if you're expecting that. But when it comes to characters and real life issues and basically this parallel of identical girls who have chosen different paths in life, and then after that we also see their daughters, their children, and how they deal with certain things, and it's just, there is so much to it. I loved it. I was so immersed into this story and into what was happening. Basically, I have a very soft spot for character-driven stories. I have a soft spot for historical fiction. I have a soft spot for stories that take place over multiple decades. I love it. I love to see different generations and how they react to certain things, and it's just wow. The writing was amazing, it was emotional, it really hit me, it was just everything that I wanted it to be. I can definitely see that this book will not be for everybody. Again, it has to be your cup of tea. It is not fast-paced or action-packed, but it's very much about the characters and it feels very realistic and raw, and I love that no single character is perfect. I mean, some of them are obviously more flawed than others, but all of them definitely are very human, and I was all here for it. So I gave The Vanishing Half 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it, I adored it, it was amazing. Next book that I finished was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This book tells the story of a young woman named Nora Seed, and Nora is extremely unhappy with her life. So unhappy in fact that she decides to end her own life, but at the moment that she decides to do that, at the stroke of midnight, she ends up in this very mysterious midnight library. And the concept of this library is that it's full with different versions of Nora's life based on different decisions that she would have made. So she gets to see different versions of her life, different ways it could have gone if she had decided to do something differently. And in the process, she can find out what exactly she wants from her life and what exactly is it that she is looking for. This book is again one that is extremely popular. So many people loved it, and I can definitely see why. I was initially hesitant to pick it up because I had read a book by Matt Haig before, How to Stop Time, and I wasn't the biggest fan. So I was not sure if I would enjoy this one, but I'm very happy that I did give it a chance and I did pick it up because I very much enjoyed it. I loved the concept and I love how informative it is about mental health and how realistic and how well portrayed. It feels very real and very emotional, and I just love the way that it was told, how about like regrets and things you wished you would have done differently. It is very beautiful, very well executed. I do have one critique, and that is that at some point the whole concept of this midnight library and of like parallel lives in different universes got over-explained a bit. They tried to come up with a believable reason behind it, and I really did not need that because I felt like, why? It took up too much of the story and I really was not interested in it. I felt like it would have been much better if it remained nonsensical, like let's keep this magical, let's keep this sort of weird, it doesn't need an explanation, and then there would have been even more focus on the point and the moral of the story, in my opinion. But that is the only thing, and overall I still very much enjoyed it. I think it was very well told, very well written. I don't think it's like one of my new all-time favorites because I still had a little bit of, you know, critique, a little bit of certain things that I wasn't 100% certain about. But I did give it 4 out of 5 stars because it is definitely a good one. and I think it's a very important story, and I think this is someone or like a book that can help a lot of people. And yeah, again, happy that I decided to read it because yeah, very much enjoyed it. And then lastly, for the book series that I finished in May, very happy with this, that I finally finished it after years and years. But I read the final book in the Diviners series by Libba Bray, and that is The King of Crows. The Diviners is a book series that takes place in the 1920s, mostly in New York City. It follows a group of young people who all have different kinds of supernatural powers, and they are called the Diviners. And then every single book also relates to a certain murder mystery that also has a supernatural element to it. So to summarize, it is supernatural historical fiction, which is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the first 3 books. They are so much fun. The characters are amazing. So I finally picked up the final book. I listened to the audiobook again because the audiobooks of the Diviners, many people have said it before, but they are amazing. And for the final book, I do have to say that I was a tiny bit disappointed. The thing is, there has been much build up in the previous 3 books, and then we have this final book. And basically like 80% of this book is just the characters waiting. I do love good character moments, and this book definitely has a lot of those, like amazing character moments. That is something that this book series does very well. But at this point, in the final book of a supernatural series with like murderers and ghosts and things like that, I would have liked a bit more action and a bit more adventure instead of just these characters hanging around waiting. I felt like this book could at least have been half of like the length that it is right now, because we've already gotten those character moments in the previous books. Like the other books are also a bit slow, take a lot of time to build up the characters, but then we have the final one and there's just nothing but the characters being characters, and I want more action and adventure and emotions and everything. And we got that at the end, but it felt like I had to wait for it a very long time. And of course the writing is still amazing, the atmosphere is still amazing, again the characters are still amazing, but the plot was lacking in this one. I felt that it was quite a disappointment. I think the plot was a lot stronger in the previous 3 books. So overall I wish the ending would have been stronger. I think it could have been. It wasn't ideal, but I didn't hate it either. It's not like it's really, really bad. It was just long, and for a long time nothing noteworthy happened. But on the right side, I finished the book series. That is so nice. I'm so happy about that. Wow, I need to finish more book series because I now know the feeling of how happy it makes me. And I think the series overall is still amazing. It's just this one book that is a tiny bit disappointing. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's alright, but I'm mostly happy with it because it made me finish the series, not necessarily the book itself. And that was it for my May reading wrap up. I hope you still enjoyed it even though it was late. As you can tell, I definitely had a good reading month, and I'm very happy that I got to read so much. I also have like 4 other books that I'm still currently reading, but of course those will be featured in my next wrap up. Please let me know what you have read this month and what was your favorite book that you've read this month. I would love to know. And then this was it for this video. If you liked it, you can maybe give it a like, a thumbs up, or again leave a comment or subscribe if you want to see more bookish content. I would always really appreciate the support and the love, and you guys are amazing. And hopefully I will see you again very soon in one of my next videos. Bye!